In the late Victorian world of vast estates, formal portraits, and rigid hierarchies, few families left a deeper imprint on modern royalty than the Bowes-Lyons. At the center of that family stood Cecilia Bowes-Lyon, Countess of Strathmore and Kinghorne, matriarch of 10 children who grew up between the halls of Glamis Castle and the quiet gardens of Hertfordshire. Some of her children would rise to prominence, some would serve on the battlefield, some would spend their lives in public duty, and several would die heartbreakingly young. Today, we trace every single one of their lives: Violet, Mary, Patrick, John, Alexander, Fergus, Rose, Michael, Elizabeth, and David. Not just the famous queen among them, but the overlooked siblings whose stories shaped a dynasty. This is the complete chronological record of what happened to Cecilia Bowes-Lyon's children, from birth to family to careers to legacy. No myths, no dramatics, just history, clearly told. Cecilia Nina Cavendish Bentinck was born in 1862 into one of Britain's most distinguished aristocratic families. Her marriage in 1881 to Claude Bowes-Lyon, who would become the 14th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorne, united two powerful Scottish noble houses. The couple divided their time between Glamis Castle in Angus, Scotland, a medieval fortress steeped in history and legend, and St. Paul's Waldenbury, their Georgian country house in Hertfordshire. Between 1882 and 1902, Cecilia gave birth to 10 children. This was the era of the British Empire at its height, when aristocratic families maintained sprawling estates, employed dozens of servants, and expected their children to fulfill specific social roles. The Bowes-Lyon children grew up in an environment of privilege, but also duty. They were taught languages, music, and deportment by governesses and tutors. They learned estate management, public service, and the expectations of their class. The family occupied a respected but not prominent position in British aristocracy. They were well-connected, comfortable, and traditional. Cecilia ran her households with efficiency and warmth, creating a close-knit family environment despite the formality of the age. Her children would go on to serve in wars, manage estates, marry into European nobility, and, most famously, provide Britain with a beloved queen consort and queen mother. Their stories begin with the eldest. Violet Hyacinth Bowes-Lyon was born on 17th of April 1882 at Glamis Castle, the first child of Claude and Cecilia. Her arrival was celebrated as the beginning of what would become a large family. As the eldest, Violet occupied a special position in the household during her early years. She was raised according to Victorian upper-class conventions, cared for by nursemaids, dressed in elaborate children's clothing, and sheltered from the rougher aspects of daily life. Her childhood was divided between the ancient stone corridors of Glamis and the more intimate rooms of St. Paul's Waldenbury. She would have participated in the structured routines common to aristocratic children of the period: morning lessons, afternoon walks on the estate grounds, and formal family meals. By the time her sister Mary was born in 1883, Violet had younger siblings to share her nursery with, though she remained the eldest daughter for her entire short life. The Bowes-Lyon household was relatively informal by aristocratic standards. Cecilia involved herself directly in her children's upbringing, and the family maintained close bonds. Violet grew up in this affectionate environment, surrounded by the growing number of brothers and sisters who arrived in quick succession through the 1880s. Little is recorded about Violet's specific personality or interests, which is typical for Victorian children who died young. The family maintained their seasonal movements between Scotland and England, and Violet would have been exposed to estate life, tenant relations, and the rhythms of country house society. She would have begun basic education with her siblings under the supervision of governesses, learning reading, writing, arithmetic, and the social accomplishments expected of girls of her station. In 1893, the family was staying at Ham House in Richmond-upon-Thames when tragedy struck. Violet contracted diphtheria, a bacterial infection that was a leading cause of child mortality in the Victorian era. Despite whatever medical care was available to a family of their status, Violet died on 17 October 1893. She was 11 years old. She was buried at St. Andrew's Church in Ham. Her death profoundly affected Cecilia and Claude, who would experience further losses among their children in the years to come. Violet's death reminded the family that privilege could not always protect against disease. She left no descendants, no public legacy, no recorded achievements, only the memory of a life cut short at the threshold of adolescence. Her siblings would carry forward the family name without her. Mary Frances Bowes-Lyon was born on 30 August 1883 at Glamis Castle, just 16 months after her sister Violet. Following Violet's death in 1893, Mary became the eldest surviving daughter of the family, a position that carried particular significance in Edwardian society. She grew up during the late Victorian period, educated at home by governesses in the manner typical for aristocratic girls. Her education focused on languages, music, literature, and the social graces. Mary learned to manage households, organize social events, and navigate the complex hierarchies of British society. She spent her formative years at Glamis and St. Paul's Waldenbury, developing the skills that would later serve her in her role as a titled lady and royal servant. On 17 September 1910, Mary married Sidney Herbert, 16th Lord Elphinstone at St. James's Church in Piccadilly. The marriage elevated her status and brought her into the sphere of Scottish aristocratic society. The couple made their home at Carberry Tower in Midlothian, Scotland, a substantial estate that required management and social oversight. As Lady Elphinstone, Mary assumed the responsibilities of running a large household and maintaining her family's social position. Carberry Tower became known for its hospitality, and Mary proved herself an capable hostess and estate manager. Her marriage was reportedly happy, and she and Sidney worked together to maintain their properties and fulfill their local duties. Mary's most significant public role came through her appointment as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Mary, consort of King George V. This position placed her at the heart of the royal household, attending the Queen at official functions and providing companionship and assistance. The role reflected both her family's growing proximity to royalty and her own personal qualities of discretion and reliability. She carried out various honorary roles throughout her life, representing the royal family at events and supporting charitable causes. Carberry Tower itself became a venue of some importance, hosting notable guests and serving as a center of local society in Midlothian. Mary's dignified presence and service earned her respect in both aristocratic and royal circles. Mary and Sidney had 5 children: Elizabeth, John, Jean, Margaret, and Andrew. Her descendants would continue the Elphinstone line and maintain connections to the broader royal network. Most notably, Mary became godmother to Princess Elizabeth, the future Queen Elizabeth II, cementing the close relationship between the Bowes-Lyon and royal families. Mary lived to the age of 78, dying on 8 February 1961. In her will, she left Carberry Tower and its grounds to what is now the National Trust for Scotland, ensuring the preservation of her family home. Her long life spanned out from Victorian childhood to the modern age, and her service to the crown and careful stewardship of her family estate defined her legacy. She had witnessed the transformation of British society and remained a figure of stability and tradition throughout. Patrick Bowes-Lyon was born on 22 September 1884, the first son of Claude and Cecilia. As the eldest male heir, Patrick's life was oriented from birth toward inheriting the earldom of Strathmore and Kinghorne and managing the family estates. He received the education befitting an aristocratic heir, attending Eton College, where he was exposed to the classical curriculum and social networks that defined British upper-class life. Patrick's upbringing prepared him specifically for estate management and the responsibilities of landed nobility. He learned about agriculture, tenant relations, property law, and the financial complexities of maintaining ancestral estates. Unlike younger sons who might pursue military or professional careers, Patrick's path was clearly defined. He would eventually inherit Glamis Castle and the other Bowes-Lyon properties, continuing the family line. On 16 November 1908, Patrick married Lady Dorothy Osborne, daughter of the Duke of Leeds. The marriage strengthened the family's aristocratic connections and provided Patrick with a partner suited to managing large estates and fulfilling social obligations. Dorothy proved herself a capable countess, working alongside Patrick in their duties. Even before inheriting the earldom, Patrick involved himself in the management of family properties. He worked closely with his father on estate business, learning the practical realities of being a Scottish landowner. This included overseeing agricultural operations, maintaining relationships with tenant farmers, supporting local institutions, and representing the family in regional affairs. He approached these responsibilities with seriousness and dedication. When the First World War began in 1914, Patrick joined the Black Watch, the historic Scottish regiment with which the family had long associations. He served on the Western Front and was wounded in action, an experience shared by many of his generation. The war years marked a turning point in British society, and Patrick witnessed firsthand the changes that would reshape aristocratic life. Patrick's father, Claude, died on 7 November 1944, and Patrick became the 15th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorne at the age of 60. By this time, Britain was in the final year of World War II, and the country his father had known was transforming rapidly. Patrick inherited estates facing the financial pressures of death duties, declining agricultural income, and post-war economic challenges. Patrick and Dorothy had 5 children, including Timothy, who would later become the 16th Earl. Patrick's years as Earl were devoted to stabilizing the Strathmore estates during difficult post-war conditions. He worked to modernize operations while maintaining the property's historic character, a balancing act that defined aristocratic estate management in mid-20th century Britain. Patrick died on 25th of May 1949, having served as Earl for just under 5 years. His legacy was one of dutiful stewardship during turbulent times. He had successfully navigated 2 world wars, managed the transition to a more democratic society, and ensured that Glamis Castle and its estates survived to pass to the next generation. His military service, estate management, and family leadership exemplified the responsibilities he had been raised to fulfill. John Herbert Bowes-Lyon, known as Jock, was born on 1 April 1886. As a younger son without inheritance responsibilities, Jock had greater freedom to pursue personal interests. He attended Eton College like his older brother Patrick, but his path diverged after school. He went on to Oxford University, where he distinguished himself in athletics, particularly cricket. His sporting abilities and sociable nature made him popular in university circles. Jock embodied the Edwardian ideal of the gentleman amateur, cultured, athletic, and comfortable in society. He participated actively in country sports, maintained friendships across aristocratic and professional classes, and enjoyed the relatively carefree life available to younger sons of established families. His personality was notably outgoing compared to some of his more reserved siblings. On 29 September 1914, just months after the outbreak of World War I, Jock married Honor Fenella Hepburn Stuart Forbes Trefusis, daughter of the 21st Baron Clinton. The couple went on to have 5 daughters: Patricia, Anne, Diana, Margaret, and Catherine. The family maintained a comfortable position in British society, though without the landed estates and titles of the senior Bowes-Lyon line. Tragically, 2 of Jock's daughters, Nerissa and Catherine, were born with severe learning disabilities. In later decades, they were institutionalized, and their existence became the subject of controversy when it was revealed that they had been largely forgotten by the wider family. This aspect of Jock's family history would not become public until long after his death, but it represented one of the darker chapters in the Bowes-Lyon story. Jock pursued a career in the City of London as a stockbroker, a common profession for younger sons of good families who needed to earn their own income. The work suited his gregarious personality and social connections. During World War I, he served in the armed forces, but like many veterans, he returned home affected by his experiences. He suffered from what was then termed neurasthenia, what we would now recognize as combat-related stress disorders. Jock died on 7 February 1930 at Glamis Castle at the age of 43. His death was unexpected and represented another loss for the close-knit family. Through his daughters, Jock's line maintained connections to various strands of British and European aristocracy, though his family would later be remembered as much for tragedy as for social position. His relatively short life reflected both the opportunities and vulnerabilities of younger sons in aristocratic families. Alexander Francis Bowes-Lyon, called Alec, was born on 14 April 1887 at St. Paul's, Walden Bury. As another younger son in a growing family, Alec occupied a middle position among the siblings. Less is recorded about his childhood than about his older brothers, which is typical for children who died young without significant public roles. Alec grew up during the late Victorian and early Edwardian periods, a time of relative stability and prosperity for families like the Bowes-Lyon. He would have received a similar education to his brothers, likely attending preparatory school and being groomed for either military service or a professional career, the usual paths for younger sons who would not inherit estates. Alec's life was cut tragically short when he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Medical treatment for such conditions was extremely limited in the early 20th century, and the prognosis would have been grim from the start. He died on 19th October 1911 at the age of just 24, before he had established any career or family of his own. His death represented another profound loss for Claude and Cecilia, who had already buried their eldest daughter Violet and would later lose their son Fergus in the war. Alec left no descendants and no public record of achievements. He was buried in the family plot, remembered by his siblings but largely forgotten by history. His brief life serves as a reminder that even in privileged families, death from disease could strike at any time. The family mourned him privately and carried on, as Victorian and Edwardian conventions demanded. Fergus Bowes-Lyon was born on 18th of April 1889, another of the middle sons in the large family. From an early age, Fergus showed interest in military service, a prestigious career path for younger sons of aristocratic families. He attended Eton College, where he would have participated in the school's military training programs and developed the discipline expected of future officers. Following Eton, Fergus pursued his military ambitions and received a commission in the Black Watch, the Royal Highland Regiment that had long associations with Scottish aristocratic families. The Black Watch was one of Britain's most distinguished regiments, and service in its ranks was considered honorable and demanding. Fergus trained as an infantry officer, preparing for what seemed likely to be a career of colonial garrison duty and ceremonial responsibilities. On 17 September 1914, just weeks after Britain entered World War I, Fergus married Lady Christian Nora Dawson-Damer, daughter of the Earl of Portarlington. The rushed timing was typical of the period. Many young officers married quickly before deploying to France, uncertain if they would return. The ceremony took place during the early months of the war, when patriotic enthusiasm still outweighed the grim realities that would soon become apparent. The couple had one daughter, Rosemary, born in 1915. Fergus had limited time with his new family. Like thousands of other young fathers, he was separated from his wife and infant daughter by military duty. He spent what leave he had at family homes, but most of his married life was consumed by preparations for combat and service at the front. Fergus deployed to France with the Black Watch and saw action on the Western Front. The conditions were horrific. Trench warfare, artillery bombardments, and mass casualties characterized the fighting. On 27 September 1915, during the Battle of Loos in northern France, Fergus was killed in action. He was 26 years old. His body was initially listed as missing, buried somewhere in the chaos of the battlefield. For decades, his grave's precise location remained uncertain. It was not until 2012 that the Commonwealth War Graves Commission formally identified and commemorated his burial site, bringing closure to a nearly century-old uncertainty. Fergus left behind his widow Christian, his infant daughter Rosemary, and a family devastated by yet another premature death. His sacrifice was shared by hundreds of thousands of British servicemen, but to the Bowes-Lyon, it was a deeply personal tragedy that marked the family for generations. Rose Constance Bowes-Lyon was born on 6 May 1890, and she grew up particularly close to her youngest sister Elizabeth, the future Queen Mother. The two shared childhood experiences at Glamis and St. Paul's Waldenbury, participating in family theatricals, music, and the informal pursuits that characterized the Bowes-Lyon household. Rose received the standard education for aristocratic girls, languages, arts, and social training from governesses. The family's relatively relaxed atmosphere, despite their social position, meant that Rose and her siblings had more freedom than some of their aristocratic peers. They explored the extensive castle grounds, interacted with tenants and staff, and developed the unpretentious manner that would later characterize Elizabeth's public persona. Rose's upbringing prepared her for a life of public service and social responsibility. On 24 May 1916, during the depths of World War I, Rose married William Levison Gower, who would inherit his father's title to become 4th Earl Granville. The marriage brought Rose into another significant aristocratic family with extensive landholdings and political connections. She became Countess Granville and assumed the responsibilities of managing estates and fulfilling social obligations. Rose took on various royal service roles throughout her life, supporting her sister Elizabeth in public duties and representing the extended royal family at official functions. She maintained the discretion and dignity expected of someone in her position, serving without seeking personal attention. Her work exemplified the quiet public service performed by many aristocratic women in the 20th century. Rose and William had 2 children, Mary Cecilia and Granville. Her family maintained close connections to the royal household throughout the decades, and Rose herself served as godmother to various members of the extended royal family. She remained active in charitable work and social causes appropriate to her position. Rose died on 17 July 1967 at the age of 77. She had the distinction of being the last surviving sibling of her generation, outliving all 9 of her brothers and sisters. Her long life allowed her to witness extraordinary changes in British society, from the height of imperial power through 2 world wars to the modern era. She maintained her family connections, supported her sister through decades of royal service, and exemplified the aristocratic values of duty and discretion that defined her class and generation. Michael Claude Hamilton Bowes-Lyon was born on 1 October 1893, one of the younger children in the family. Like his brothers, Michael pursued a military career, receiving a commission as an officer. During World War I, he served on the Western Front and experienced one of the war's most notorious ordeals. He was captured by German forces and became a prisoner of war at Holzminden, a camp in Lower Saxony infamous for its harsh conditions and brutal commandant. The Holzminden camp held Allied officers in difficult circumstances, and escape attempts were common. Michael survived his imprisonment and was eventually repatriated when the war ended in 1918. His POW experience while harrowing gave him a unique perspective on the war. Unlike his brother Fergus, Michael survived the conflict and returned home to build a post-war life. He continued his military involvement, eventually attaining the rank of lieutenant colonel. On 17 November 1928, Michael married Elizabeth Margaret Cater at St. Margaret's Church in Westminster. The couple settled into country life and had 4 children, Fergus, Michael, Elizabeth, and Mary. Most notably, their son Fergus would eventually become the 17th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorne, inheriting the family title and estates through the senior line. Beyond his military service, Michael involved himself in local governance and community affairs. He held various civic positions, served on county councils, and participated in the kind of public service expected of landed gentry. His work was typical of minor aristocracy in the mid-20th century, unpaid public service, estate management assistance, and ceremonial duties. He represented the family in local matters and maintained the Bowes-Lyon presence in community life. Michael continued his public work through the post-war years, adapting to the changing social landscape of mid-century Britain. The aristocracy's role was evolving, and figures like Michael navigated between traditional expectations and new realities. He supported his nephew Patrick, the 15th Earl, in managing family affairs and maintained the family's local standing. Michael died on 19th of September 1953 at the age of 59. His legacy lived on through his children, particularly through the line that would continue to hold the Strathmore earldom. His son Fergus's eventual inheritance meant that Michael's descendants remained at the center of the family structure. Michael's life represented a successful adaptation to 20th century changes. He survived war, raised a family, and fulfilled his duties without achieving particular fame or notoriety. His steadiness and service characterized the less visible but essential work of maintaining family continuity. Elizabeth Angela Marguerite Bowes-Lyon was born on 4 August 1900, reportedly at St. Paul's Waldenbury, though some uncertainty exists about whether she was born there or in London. She was the 9th of the 10 children and grew up in the Edwardian era, experiencing a childhood that combined aristocratic privilege with relative informality. She was particularly close to her brother David and her sister Rose. During World War I, Glamis Castle was converted into a convalescent hospital for wounded soldiers. Elizabeth, still a teenager, assisted with the war effort by helping to entertain recovering servicemen, organizing activities, and providing companionship. This early exposure to public service and her natural warmth with people would define her later public persona. She witnessed the human cost of war firsthand, an experience that shaped her character. Elizabeth's life changed dramatically when she married Prince Albert, Duke of York, the second son of King George V, on 26 April 1923 at Westminster Abbey. She became Duchess of York and entered the royal family, though she was initially expected to remain in a supporting role. She and Albert had two daughters, Elizabeth, the future Queen Elizabeth II, in 1926, and Margaret in 1930. The abdication crisis of 1936 thrust Elizabeth into an unexpected position. When Albert's older brother Edward VIII abdicated to marry Wallis Simpson, Albert became King George VI, and Elizabeth became Queen Consort. She was crowned alongside her husband on 12th of May 1937 at Westminster Abbey. The couple faced the enormous challenge of restoring public confidence in the monarchy and leading Britain through World War II. During World War II, Elizabeth became a symbol of British resistance, famously refusing to leave London during the Blitz and visiting bombed areas to boost morale. Her visible solidarity with ordinary Britons earned her lasting affection. After George VI's death in 1952, she became Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, supporting her daughter's reign while maintaining an active public schedule. Elizabeth lived to the extraordinary age of 101, dying on 30th March 2002. Her lifespan encompassed the entire 20th century, and she witnessed Britain's transformation from imperial power to modern nation. She remained popular throughout her life, known for her charm, resilience, and dedication to duty. Her fame ensured that the Bowes-Lyon name remained prominent, and she became the family member most remembered by the public. Her legacy overshadowed her siblings, but she maintained close family ties throughout her long life. David Bowes-Lyon was born on 2nd May 1902, the youngest of Cecilia and Claude's 10 children. As the baby of the family, David grew up with the benefits of older siblings' experiences, and in a somewhat more relaxed environment than the eldest children had known. He was particularly close to his sister Elizabeth, and the two maintained a strong bond throughout their lives. David's childhood was marked by Edwardian comfort, gradually giving way to the changes of the early 20th century. He was educated at home initially, and then at Eton, where he received the classical education typical of his class. Unlike his older brothers, who came of age during or immediately before World War I, David reached adulthood in the 1920s in a Britain transformed by war and social change. During World War II, David served with the Political Warfare Executive, a secret British propaganda organization that operated alongside intelligence services to undermine enemy morale and support resistance movements. His work was classified at the time, and the full extent of his contributions remained obscure for decades afterward. After the war, David focused on public service in Hertfordshire, where the family maintained St. Paul's Walden Bury. He was appointed Lord Lieutenant of Hertfordshire, a ceremonial but important position representing the Crown in county matters. Additionally, David developed a serious interest in horticulture. He became known for his expertise in gardening and plant cultivation, winning awards and gaining recognition in horticultural circles, a pursuit that might seem modest but reflected genuine expertise and dedication. On the 16th December 1929, David married Rachel Pauline Spender Clay, daughter of Lieutenant Colonel Harold Spender Clay. The couple had 2 children, Davina and Simon. David's family life was stable and largely private, conducted away from the intense public scrutiny that surrounded his sister Elizabeth's royal household. David died suddenly on the 13th September 1961 at Birkhall, the royal residence in Scotland where he was visiting his sister. He was just 59 years old. His death was unexpected and deeply affected Elizabeth, who had relied on his companionship and support. David was remembered within the family as the charming, talented youngest brother, someone who had found fulfillment in public service and personal pursuits rather than in seeking prominence. His legacy was quieter than some of his siblings, but it reflected a life of duty, expertise, and family loyalty. 10 children born between 1882 and 1902. 4 died before middle age: Violet, Alexander, Fergus, and Jock, their lives cut short by disease, war, or unexpected illness. The 6 who lived to older ages fulfilled the duties expected of their class. Patrick managed estates and inherited the earldom. Mary served at court and preserved family property. Rose supported the royal family through decades of public service. Michael survived war and raised the next generation of earls. Elizabeth became one of the 20th century's most recognized royal figures, and David contributed to intelligence work and local governance. Collectively, the Bowes-Lyon siblings touched nearly every aspect of British aristocratic and royal life. They served in 2 world wars, managed extensive landed estates, worked in royal households, married into other noble families, and produced descendants who continue those lines today. Their service was typical of their class, but executed with particular distinction. The family's reputation for warmth, duty, and resilience was built on these 10 lives. Cecilia Bowes-Lyon raised her children in an environment that balanced aristocratic formality with genuine affection and relative freedom. Her influence produced children who were generally capable, dutiful, and close to one another. The warmth of the Bowes-Lyon household, remarked upon by visitors and recorded in family accounts, came largely from her approach to family life. She endured the deaths of 3 of her children during her lifetime and witnessed others face war, loss, and challenge. Yet the family remained close, supporting one another through difficulties. The values Cecilia instilled, duty, service, loyalty, and family connection, defined her children's approach to their varied roles. Most significantly, her youngest daughter Elizabeth carried forward that same combination of duty and warmth into the heart of the British monarchy, ensuring that the Bowes-Lyon family legacy would extend far beyond their Scottish estates. Through her children, Cecilia's influence touched the course of modern British history in ways that extended well beyond what might have been expected of a Victorian aristocratic matriarch.